Hello, I'm Old Fart, and I have a guilty pleasure. I like knives. You're looking at one of a collection of videos where I'm sharing a look into my collection of small folding pocket knives. I'm not an expert or a representative of anyone in any way. I just like knives. Today we're going to look at this lovely little knife. This is a Benchmade 940 Osborne, the 940-1 model. I'll explain what that means in a second. This was the first larger knife that I put into my collection since I started collecting. I used to say that what I collected was small folding pocket knives. And I actually kind of felt guilty when I realized I wanted one of these because it's hardly what I would call a small knife. But I realized that there are certain iconic knives that define various classes, and that basically, if you want to have a well-rounded collection, you got to have one of these things. The Spyderco Paramilitary 2 would be on that list, the Benchmade Cryptilian, something by Chris Reeve, and this knife. The Benchmade 940 is definitely one of the iconic knives in the field. So I knew I'd like to have one for my collection, and I put it on my mental list. And then when this particular model came out, the 940-1, that really clinched it, because the 940-1 is a special upgraded model which uses carbon fiber scales, and I really like carbon fiber. And it has updated blade steel as well, which I also thought was really cool. So that clinched it. I had to have one, managed to get hold of one before they went out of stock everywhere, and here it is. So I mentioned there are a number of 940 models. They're all called Osborne. That's named after the designer, the late Warren Osborne. The 941 is this -1 is this premium model with carbon fiber and S90V steel. There are other models, the plain 940, 940-2, very limited 940-2001, and so on. They all have this same shape, body style, and blade characteristics, but they differ in the handle material and the blade steel. So let's do a quick description. Again, I'm not going to go into all the technical details in great depth. There are a lot of places on the net that do that. But I will talk about size because that's important in some jurisdictions. Let's just start by saying it's big. I know if you have big knives, this isn't big, but it's big by my standards of small pocket knives. Closed, it's 114 millimeters, I think, about 4.5 inches, which means it's, just as an example, it's about the same size as one of those nice little compact pocket flashlights. So it fits in the pocket fairly well, although it's not tiny. Open. Total length is about 8 inches, 200 millimeters. The blade itself is 86 millimeters, or about 3.5 inches, 3.4, I think, maybe, something like that. And I mention that because the blade is well over the magic 3-inch limit that makes this a legal or illegal knife in some jurisdictions. So if you're in a 3-inch limit jurisdiction, this knife is too big. Go away. The opening and closing mechanism is it's a traditional thumb stud opener, like so, and it's the patented Benchmade axis lock, which means that when the blade reaches fully open, this spring-operated lever clicks into place, locking the blade. To unlock it, you pull back on these two studs, thumb and forefinger. The blade is now unlocked and swinging freely. A very secure and reliable locking mechanism that I kind of like, with one problem that I'll discuss in a little while. The blade on the 940 is called a reverse tanto. I should say I don't really like the tanto blades. I find them a little bit aggressive looking, that stabby looking point. The reverse tanto, what's reverse? The reverse tanto means that the top of the blade comes down sharply to meet the curve of the cutting surface. In a traditional tanto, the back of the blade would be straighter and the end of the blade would angle up sharply to meet the back. but they both look a little bit stabby and murdery to my taste, so it's not a shape I would prefer, except, as I said, in this particular knife it's an icon and I had to have one. There is also a 943 Osborne, which is the same knife, but with a drop point blade. But I was after the standard, the 940, and its reverse tanto. And also, I think, to my mind, the 943 looks a little odd. It is a drop point blade, but because it's so long and narrow, the drop point ends up looking almost like a clip point, sort of a hunting knife shape, and it doesn't appeal to me. So anyway, this was the one to have. On the 940-1, the blade has this stone-washed finish. That, combined with the special steel alloy, gives it a dark gray matte color. It kind of reinforces the no-nonsense functional look of the blade. The blade on this special is S90V steel, which is a newer steel that is rated as having great edge retention and wear resistance, and good corrosion resistance as well. Now, what the steel reviewers will tell you is that to get that great edge retention and wear resistant, it is difficult to sharpen. I'd have to say I didn't find it that. Out of the box, by the way, it came sort of paper cutting sharp, plenty sharp enough, but not mirror surface sharp. And perhaps you can see that I've brought the edge to a mirror surface here, and that was done with a KME system with diamond stones. And yeah, it took a while to sharpen, but it wasn't impossible. And with the rated edge retention, I would expect to have this good edge for quite a long time. There's a small sharpening choil that makes it a little easier to get a stone to the edge of the sharpened blade, but still the thumb studs are in harm's way when you're sharpening, and I always think it's a good idea to remove the thumb studs when sharpening a thumb stud blade. On this knife, that's not difficult. The thumb studs are double-sided number 6 Torx screws, so they're easy to take out, sharpen the blade with nothing in the way, put it back together, and that works very well. The scales on the 940-1 are carbon fiber, and I really like the look of it. On other 940 models, the scales can be aluminum or G10, and that really limited edition version, the 2001 it was called, had titanium scales. And that sold out almost immediately. I would certainly buy one if I ever saw it. I like titanium, and I think it would be great on this design. The clip is a pretty ordinary black steel clip. The standard one that comes with the knife is shallow carry, but one of the insider secrets with Benchmade is that you can get a deep carry replacement clip for pretty much any of their knives by calling their customer service line. So I did that, and this is the deep carry clip. Now, strangely, you can only get the deep carry clip by calling their customer service line and talking to the nice person on the phone. There isn't any way to order it online, by email, or from their website. And there is some kind of a complex algorithm that determines whether the clip is free or costs $5. I don't understand that algorithm. This one cost me nothing. They mailed it to me for nothing, so I certainly appreciated that. The clip is two-sided mountable, so it can go on either side, tip up only. Mentioning the two-sided clip, it's worth pointing out that on this knife, because of the axis lock and the thumb studs, it is fully and truly ambidextrous. If you move the clip to this side, then you have a left-handed knife. There is no difference between the two sides. On some knives you can move the clip, but you still really have a right-handed knife because of the operation of the mechanism or something. But this knife has no presentation side that is different from the clip side, and it is truly ambidextrous. So if you're a lefty, that will be a great positive for you. So let me mention a couple of things that I like about this knife. First of all, it's incredibly light for its size. It's the carbon fiber doing that. There's essentially no weight here except for the blade and the small half steel liners that are inside to stiffen the body. So very light for its size, and yet nicely balanced. Now, the other thing I like a lot about it is it's a good fidget mechanism. It took me a while to learn to flick it open, okay. But I eventually did. But you can also, what's nice about this is you can also Chris Reeve it open. You can open it slowly and it clicks open securely and you get a good secure lock. With some frame locks and liner locks that I have, you really can't open it slowly or you don't get a secure lock. The locking bar will travel only part way across the blade. With this one, not so. You don't have to fly it open to get a secure lock. Even a slow, gentle opening gives you a good secure lock, and that's an important option to have if you're trying to be non-threatening. As I mentioned, by the way, it took me a while to learn how to flick it open. I was going too much sideways, and like there's a sweet spot angle. Your thumb needs to go kind of that way, and then there it is. And there aren't many misfires with this knife. It tends to open all the way or not at all. So the opening mechanism is great, and I do like fidgeting with it. With some adjustment to close it, you have to pull both sides of the axis lock to unlock the blade. Now you can close it with your other hand, or with some adjustment. It is a drop-shut blade. There, it's loose enough to drop shut. I like the option of being able to open and close it two-handed because that can be very useful in an environment where there are nervous people around. The knife is very comfortable to hold and to use, and it sort of instills confidence. There's lots of cutting edge, so it's certainly a more than adequate blade for fairly large tasks. There's lots of room to move the blade if you're cutting heavy cardboard or something like that. In fact, I should say this was kind of the crack in the foundation that got me to start allowing larger knives into my collection. Carrying this for a while, I realized, larger knives have some advantages. So I still collect primarily small knives, but now several in this size range are also creeping into the collection, and it's the 940's fault that happened. It is a very slim knife, so slim and comfortable to hold. You get a full 4-finger grip on the handle, and the curve of the handle here acts as a finger guard to stop you from sliding up on the blade. And there's jimping along the back of the locking mechanism here so that the thumb is nice and secure. So a good secure hold on the knife, no blade play. So I always feel very comfortable and safe working with this knife. No blade plate at all. I think that is worth mentioning. The axis lock works really well. Secures open beautifully. And one of the things I like about axis locks is you are closing the blade without any part of your hand in harm's way. With liner locks and frame locks, your thumb has to be over here when the blade starts closing. That always makes me a little nervous. So I do like that with the axis locks, nothing is in harm's way as the blade closes. And I do just generally like the looks of the carbon fiber body. And there's a little splash of color here with these anodized backspacers that are in there between the slabs of black carbon fiber. So I think it's a beautiful knife. It's pleasant to handle, functional. I like it a lot. There are some things I don't like, and nothing I hate, but some don't likes. First of all, out of the box when it arrived new, the blade was not particularly well centered. Now, it wasn't badly off, but it was noticeably off. It wasn't hard to adjust. Lots of YouTube videos on how to do that. Basically, you just loosen the pivot screw, jam a piece of paper into the side that's too close so that it forces the blade over a little bit, and then tighten the screw again, and it will almost always come out centered after doing that. So not hard to fix. But this is an expensive knife, and this is a premium version of an expensive knife, and I would have expected better assembly tolerances. So, oh well. Another thing I don't particularly care for is there are several nooks and crannies on this knife that attract dirt. So this is one here. With the knife closed, this inside portion of the blade, which has that deep cutout, that's part of the axis lock mechanism, well, that loves pocket lint. That gets filled up with crap from my pockets, and I have to clean it out regularly because, well, first of all, it's ugly, and I'm also concerned that dirt will find its way down into the washers and the opening mechanism. So I clean that out with a rag or a toothbrush fairly often. Now, another area that collects dirt and is more of a problem than just being cosmetic is the runway here where the spring relief for the axis lock works. So these two studs of the axis lock slide under spring tension, and they're sliding on a washer running on a steel plate. And that's dirty in there. It gets dusty and gritty. And it really is a noticeable gritty feeling. I don't know if you can hear this, but that is not pulling smoothly. There's a really noticeable gritty tension on that. Open, you can hear it. That really bothers me. It isn't silky smooth, and I wish it was. Just lubricating it from the outside has not fixed it. There's obviously some rough metal surfaces rubbing against one another in there. Now, I'm almost certain that that's something I could polish away. But I don't particularly want to take this knife apart until I have to. The axis locks are complex mechanisms inside. There are springs in there and things that want to fly apart when you start to disassemble. So eventually I will disassemble this for cleaning or more serious maintenance, and when I do, I plan to polish those washers and the steel surface that they run on. Then maybe a little light grease, and I bet it will give me the silky smooth feeling that I'm looking for. But, again, in an expensive knife, I just would have liked that to be a little better done. And the final thing I don't like, and I'll just mention, I have mentioned before, is why is getting a deep carry pocket clip an insider secret? Why doesn't Benchmade advertise that it's available? Why can't you buy them off their website? Why do you have to phone their customer service desk and talk to the nice person at the desk? That's just dumb. It's a product feature that lots of people want. Make it orderable. So, anyway, that is a rather small list of don't likes for what is a very functional knife. Now let's go through my internationally unknown knife rating systems. First, the NTGK rating. So how does this thing rate as a NTGK, a non-threatening gentleman's knife? Well, let's start with the non-threatening part. We'll look at a couple of aspects of, is this non-threatening? So on the negative sides, well, first of all, it's just very much not a non-threatening gentleman's knife. It's not what it's designed for. It's big. The blade is function. Beautiful function. A wonderful and effective blade, but it is not designed for an elegant look. Now, on the plus side, with thumb stub operations, you can open it slowly, which is good. So you can open it slowly and smoothly, or even two-handed. So, knives that cannot be opened slowly, like most flippers, when opened in front of a nervous person, that nervous person goes, switchblade, and it scares them. So the ability to open a knife slowly is, I think, an important attribute for a non-threatening situation. But because of just the general size and appearance, I'm going to give it, I think a B- for non-threatening. I'm not going to go lower. I'm not going to go down to a C because there's nothing on the knife, no decoration or shapes that are deliberately designed to look threatening. It's not, a so-called tactical knife with scary-looking jagged edges and soldierly markings on it. So I think we'll give it a B- for non-threatening. Now, what about the GK side for the gentleman's knife? Well, again, very little about this is gentleman. It's not what it's for. This is a tool, a working tool. At least it's light, so it does pocket nicely. Not a big load on the gentleman's pocket, and with the optional carry clip, it isn't sticking out of the pocket and looking threatening. And I'll give it a little bit of credit for the elegant carbon fiber scales. I think that looks very nice. But on the downside, it is a functional looking blade, not an elegant looking blade. It's long. The dark stonewashed finish gives it a slightly menacing look as opposed to a satin or polished finish. So it's not a gentleman's knife, not what it was designed for, not horrible, and I think I'd give it a B- on that. So in total, between non-threatening and gentleman's knife, I'm going to give this thing a B- rating. as an NTGK. Now my other rating is my KN rating. KN is what will my knife nerd friends. So my knife nerd friends love this knife. This is a standard icon in a knife collection. Everybody knows the 940, and people who haven't seen one can hardly wait to get their hands on it. And then even in that great lineage, the 940-1 is special. My knife nerd friends like the history, they like the icon, they like the S90 steel, they like the carbon fiber. So knife nerds will love this knife. So I'm going to give it an easy A+ as a KN rating. So that brings us to the end of my tour of this medium-sized knife. One of the icons in any knife collection is the 940 Osborne. You just gotta have one. This one, the 940-1, adds a touch of elegance with the carbon fiber and a premium steel to what is already a very function-first knife. Very useful blade size, a great worker's knife. Not for the office, not for the suit and tuxedo, for weekends and work. But it does get a lot of use in my pocket during those times. Thanks for looking. See you again.